Hello and welcome. This is the Zen community of Oregon, making the teachings of the Buddha Dharma accessible to support your practice. New episodes air every week.
I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. So we're continuing to do comments on Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Art of Living. And again, for those of you who are new, just before he had a massive stroke a few years ago, and he died since then. But just before he had his massive stroke, he did a 2-week retreat at Plum Village, his place in France. And his disciples took all the teachings from that time and condensed them into this book. And I think it's just really, it's among his most brilliant. So we're going through that little by little. And so I encourage you to get a copy of it. And I also encourage you, if you have comments, questions, insights, then we can talk about those too. But I'm just going to continue to go through parts of the book. And the part of the book that we're going to be talking about tonight is Thich Nhat Hanh talks about living beings. And the thing he is talking about is the basic principles of physics. Matter is neither created nor destroyed. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. Life, the life force, is neither created nor destroyed. Everything evolves. Everything becomes something else. So we sometimes think in our culture that something will become nothing, or that nothing became something. You know, we didn't exist before we were born, and suddenly out of nowhere, here we are. There's a certain truth there, but at the same time, we are a continuity. We are a stream of life energy. And that stream is dependent upon all of our progenitors. It's dependent upon our parents. And then who we are, whether we have children or not, the life energy that we are inhabiting doesn't just disappear. It doesn't just go away. It evolves. So what does that mean if we really see that clearly? Everything is evolving. Everything is transforming into something else. Well, first off, it means that when we're having an experience, let's say anger or fear, the anger and fear doesn't just disappear. The anger and fear is always transformed. Now, if we are feeling a sense of anger and fear, and we feed it, then what it transforms into is more anger and fear. It transforms into even increased anger and fear. If, on the other hand, we are working skillfully with it, then what it transforms into is wisdom or compassion or kindness. We have the capacity to take the experiences that we have, which of course, as you know, being in the human realm, we're going to have difficulties. We have the capacity to take our difficulties and to transform them into wisdom, kindness, compassion. So that's one thing, and that's part of why we're practicing. We're not practicing to be perfect. We're practicing to learn the tools and the skills of transforming our challenges, and everybody's got challenges, into the wisdom that will serve other people. And interestingly enough, the people that we can serve are the ones who are experiencing what we've gone through. So if we've had a lot of trouble with finances, if we've had a lot of trouble with sexuality, we've had a lot of trouble with relationships, and we actually meet that, then we learn, we gain, we've transformed our hard times into wisdom. And then the very people who are having those same experiences, we say, oh yeah, I've been there. Oh yeah, I have confidence that you too can transform that. Now, one of the things that Thich Nhat Hanh also talks about is not only our emotions, not only is our particular circumstances, but the things that transform inanimate objects our situation, our culture, our earth, everything is transforming. Everything is morphing. Nothing does not become something. Something does not become nothing. So if we look at that, we realize, oh, okay, our earth is transforming, and the dystopic mind, the mind of criticism, fear, and judgment says, oh, it's transforming in a way I don't like it. It's all going downhill. But life energy is not created or destroyed. It is transforming. So we can begin to looking at the difficulties and say, okay, there is a transformation happening here. I can nudge it in a certain direction. I can flow with the positive. I can not feed the negative. Everything has life energy. Now, there are koans in the Zen tradition that says that we have the capacity to make the inanimate alive. We have the capacity to bring life to dead trees. We have the capacity to bring life to stones. We have the capacity to bring life to cushions, anything. How do we do that? We have the capacity, and the way that we do that is by seeing the life in all things. When we can look at something that is purportedly dead, and we can see it as beautiful, we can see it as evolving, we can see it as a constant metamorphosis. We can see it, oh, this is part of its transformation. This is part of its life cycle. This is part of the beauty of the whole process. Then we begin to see everything is alive. Everything is alive. Everything is alive. And suddenly, instead of living in a world where things die and become dead, we're living in a world where everything is transforming. Everything is moving. Everything is alive. 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 He says, even a subatomic particle or a speck of dust has vitality. There's no absolute dividing line between the animate and the inanimate. And then he goes on and says, well, everything is alive, and so we have to look at our life. I hope if someone asks you if you're alive, you have a resounding yes. It's like somebody said, are you sitting down? You say, yes, of course I'm sitting down. It's obvious. Here I am, moving and talking and wiggling and, breathing and thinking, all those things. But if we look at our life, what is it that's alive in us? And on one level, everything that's alive in us are all the inanimate parts of ourselves. The calcium, the proteins, the enzymes. And we're made of non-self elements, as Thich Nhat talks about. That we're made of all of the if you took the non-self elements, if you took all those things that we say are inanimate, we took them out, we would not be here. So that which is inanimate is also part of our life. Our life is not just a bunch of thoughts or a bunch of awareness. Our life is the concatenation of the whole network, is our life, constantly transforming. We had a seminar this morning at Maitripa College, the Buddhist college here in town. And I was talking and somebody else was talking about the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra is the pivotal sutra. It's part of the Prajna Paramita. Prajna is wisdom. Paramita is the perfection of wisdom. The Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. The Perfection of Wisdom Sutras were very early in Buddhism. And they basically say everything is flowing. The Bodhisattva of compassion from the depths of Prajna wisdom saw that everything is flowing all the time. Everything is evolving. Rising, existing, and never disappearing. Evolving, evolving, evolving. And in the sutra it says, well, seeing that, Bodhisattva is able to relax. Able to say, oh, I can't step outside of life. I can't step outside of life. That which sees life is alive. That which sees death is alive. Thich Nhat says there's vitality in everything. The entire cosmos is radiant with vitality. And the other piece, which is, I think, relevant to practice, is we can have a practice of looking at things as if they are dead, or looking at people as if they are dead, as if they are hopeless, as if they are stuck, as if they are inanimate. We have the ability to look at this floor, walls, or we have the ability to see everything as dynamic and alive, everything in process. So, all of us go around our world and we see people and we make judgment, they're like this, they're like that. It's just what human beings do. But any judgment we make is kind of freezing a dynamic process into a particular idea. Everybody we see is a dynamic evolution. Matter is neither created nor destroyed. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's evolving, it's evolving, it's evolving. People aren't stuck. People aren't stuck. We're not stuck. So it's a practice of actually seeing the fluidity, and we do it the simple way that we do that is by looking at the breath. The breath is constantly breathing us. We are constantly being breathed. We're constantly being moved by the life energy that is surging through us. And we don't have to make ourselves be alive. Now, the other thing so the practice of paying attention to the breath, the practice of counting, which is just anchoring the mind in the breath, the practice of being one with this body, is the practice of watching the dynamic evolution of this system. It's full of life. Having a hard time, it's full of life. Feeling stuck, it's full of life. Having a great time, it's full of life. Yeah? It's full of life. We're young. We're full of life when we're old. It looks different. We're full of life. Thich Nhat says, the earth is alive. It has intelligence and creativity. If the earth were inert matter, it could not give birth to countless great beings. The earth is the mother of our parents and us. It's alive, constantly. So this practice of aliveness is a wonderful freeing practice. Wonderful freeing practice. So we see the homeless. We imagine, we put ourselves there and we think, if I were in that situation, I would feel, and we make a story of how we would feel and what we would experience. But it's possible to be in any situation with creativity, with curiosity, with life. And there are people who are living in quite affluent circumstances who are dead, who are not learning, who are not growing. And there are people who look from the outside like they're in very difficult circumstances, who are growing, who are dynamic, who are alive. One of the things that happens when we suffer is we start paying really close attention. When we're not suffering, we kind of go on cruise control. But when we're suffering, we start paying really close attention. And the more that we are demanded by our mind to pay attention to our own difficulty, the more readily we can transform it into suffering, into compassion, into wisdom. It's very important that we are practicing with this kind of thing. Practicing, reflecting on, investigating, seeing if it's true. Now, one of the things that happens, let's say we learn, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and the 16 Bodhisattva precepts and the 12-link chain of co-conditioned origination. We learn all this stuff. They're all ideas. If we want to kill our spiritual practice, we learn a bunch of stuff and say, I know. The more we know, the deader it gets. If we want to really keep it alive, we have to constantly be growing and evolving and seeing things more deeply. So when a neophyte sees, here's the Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths. Life is suffering is the classic way of saying it. Cause of suffering is grasping. There is freedom from suffering called nirvana. There's the Eightfold Path that leads to suffering. You know, Buddhism 101. But if we look at that, we think, oh, suffering, what is suffering? You know, suffering is difficulty, suffering is challenges. Oh, everybody's got challenges. And so we now are looking at it not as a doctrine, but we're beginning to look at it more deeply. We're beginning to grow in our understanding. If anybody works on koans, all the koans evolve because your understanding, the koans that I worked on 50 years ago, I look at now and think, oh my goodness, I thought I understood or passed that one in a way, but now I see, oh, that was such a callow understanding, such a shallow understanding. Because if our spiritual practice is not growing, if our understanding and wisdom is not growing because we're investigating, because we're looking into these things, then it starts dying. So the importance of not just understanding, we read books, we hear a podcast, we hear talks, we think, oh yes, I got that, okay, impermanence 101. But we have to actually make it alive. And then we have the possibility of making it richer. And any single principle of the Dharma can become infinitely deep. Everything comes from the same source. Kosho.
Just thinking about how you were talking earlier about impermanence as compassion, that nothing is fixed and everything is flowing. It's really easy for me to have a strong story that I need to shape that flow into a good transformation. I think I've really caught on that because I seem just stuck in this story that I'm unable to do that. And how much control do I really have? And
It's a wonderful, wonderful question, of course. Now, when we want to control things, that is, we have an idea of this is the outcome that I think is going to give me the most pleasure. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try to figure out how do I get the most pleasure, you know? And so we start trying to manipulate, figure out what's going to be the most pleasure, the least aversion. Now, something that's really interesting that we all have experienced, we have an idea of, oh, if I just get that new what's-its, I will feel so happy. And suddenly we get the new what's-its, and we're not as happy as we thought we would be. We suddenly, decide we're going to go on a vacation, and the vacation turns out to be miserable. We've all had that experience, I'm sure. So sometimes when we're trying to control things, we keep trying to control the circumstances, thinking the circumstances are going to be what makes me happy. So I will manipulate the circumstances, I'll manipulate the people, I'll manipulate the places and things, and I'll go to Disneyland, and then if I manipulate it so I get to go to Disneyland, the thrills of Disneyland will make me happy. It's backwards. When we are working at how do I find satisfaction and happiness here, and I take that to wherever I go, we have some control there. We don't have control by saying, okay, I'm going to control how I feel by going to this place. I'll go to Hawaii and I'll feel relaxed and happy, and people are miserable in Hawaii. Like, not everybody, but certainly some people are. Island fever is very real. But when we say, okay, I want to practice equanimity, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, and I will take that when life brings me a difficult circumstance, I'll work on it. When life brings me a pleasurable, easy circumstance, I'll work on it. Then we have some ability to actually control it. We can't control how we're going to feel when life circumstances hit us. And of course, we all have been in the situation where we've had something really, really, really difficult happen, and we learned so much from it. I'm sure everyone has said, oh, I learned so much from that, I never want to do it again, but I learned a lot from it. So we think that, there's an interesting study. Anybody else wants the microphone? There's an interesting study where they asked people and said, what are the things that you would rather die than experience? And people listed all these chronic diseases and, brain-eating bacteria, and I'm being quadriplegic and, losing this and losing that. They say it would be so horrible. But then if you ask the people who actually have experienced that, they all want to live. The people who are afraid, this would be so horrible, I just couldn't stand it, I want to die, we're all wrong. Whereas the people who actually are involved with that, many of them found peace, found life, found wisdom. So we have this mistake of trying to control circumstances to try to make us happy, when the reality is, with practice, we look at our mind and we bring that wherever we go.
Can you say just one more word about
Yes.
Actualizing your heart's deepest aspiration to not just trying to make yourself happy, but
One more word is
vow, your life vow.
One more word is yes.
Okay. Could you apply that teaching to that as well? I mean, you did some, but
So, if we are practicing deeply, and we're practicing awareness, and we are looking out at this world, and we begin to see that the looker, the looking, and the perceived are not three things. You can't cut the looker from the looking, from the object. They're one seamless whole. So if you touch anything right now, the touching, the toucher, and the object that's touched all are experienced right there. So when we have an insight into the connectedness of all things, when we have an insight into the connectedness, then as we are freer inside, we want to share that, to help other people find that. We want to have, just like if we're taking a bath and we find it feels good to wash our face, well, maybe it'll feel good to wash the rest of us. Maybe we say, I'm practicing and my heart is lighter. Maybe I can offer a practice that will allow other people's hearts to be lighter. And so then, as we are feeling more equanimous, if we are feeling more clear, we begin to share it. If we have a medicine that works, we want to share it. It feels good. It feels good to share. It feels good to be generous. So I think that we have to start by cleaning up our own, debris. If our mind is just so chaotic and full of torture, and we've got to deal with that. We've got to be able to find equanimity and calmness. And then, because we're not separate from anything, we share it. We stop halfway, it doesn't work.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Community of Oregon podcast, and thank you for your practice. New episodes air every week. Please consider making a donation at zendust.org. Your support supports us.